Okay, today is October 17th, 2020. I'm going to do a fall tour here, just fairly quickly, and touch on a few areas of the farm that I want to showcase. So we're coming down to the food forest, and you can kind of see a few apple trees sticking up here, a lot bigger this year. Got some water on them, and they're growing. All right, so this one here is Claire 4. It's really vigorous, but unfortunately it tends to produce these very long and thin branches that then break off. I had a couple break off down here this year. I had one on both sides, and they both broke off, and the heavy snow that as it was melting, it pulled them down and broke them off. A quick look in here. This is more our overgrown food forest, more or less overgrown with grass, that is. There's about probably 8 or 10 apple trees up there. And then we'll go over here to our very big, right here, if I can get it there, right there. That is a Norland that's been in the ground probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and it's actually getting to a good size now. We went through today on all the apple trees. This is a yellow transparent from a number of years ago, but it got damaged really bad, and so I had to cut it off, and this is all new growth from the last couple of years. Anyway, we're out today painting everything with plant skid to trying to discourage the moose from chewing on things. These poor, let me get my hand on the picture there. These are random, as I say that, but they're obviously kiwi. They're kiwi berry bushes, Arctic kiwi, but I have no idea what the sex of them is because I bought them as seedlings from Fred Meyer's years ago, and they're still in actually 1-gallon pots buried in the ground. So yeah, one year we'll get out here and get these planted out. There's a couple of them that actually survive the winter, and they're male because they have flowered. Some of them have flowered, a few of them have flowered, and they're male. So males are the issue up here because they're not as hard as the females, and so the males usually die back every year. This is Polaris blueberry, didn't flower this year. Here's Chippewa. It flowered and produced blueberries this year. We got quite a few off of it. This is actually two planted together here. North Blue, loaded with berries this year, great taste. And then a few more blueberries in there scattered around. Let's go down here. And a few currant bushes. These actually didn't. Yeah, these didn't produce this year, probably because I just neglected them way too much. But anyway, let's run down to the vineyard. I'm using an iPad today, so it's a little bit bigger and I can't hold it as well as I can on my phone usually. It's a little cumbersome. Anyway, we'll come down here. I'm looking down. Over here you can see these rows in the background of black. That's probably about a dozen wild treasure blackberries planted in there for a couple of years. Thought I had lost them. A bunch of them came back this year, so we'll try and get them watered next year. That's primarily the issue with them. Water, and they're not protected very well. They'll be producing 3 or 4 pounds per bush here in a couple of years, I hope. And now down to the vineyard here. Most of them are looking pretty much the same as they have in years past. Vandal Fish, this is like, 6-8 inches tall, typical. 5817 didn't harden off, froze to death. Just a little bit of a surprise here. This is Prairie Star. You can see there's a fair amount of wood down here that's turned color, probably to about there. That's about a foot of cane that might survive the winter. I'm not sure. We had a really rapid drop in temperature the last couple of days, or last started a week and a half ago, had 50-60 degree temperatures, and then all of a sudden last Saturday it dropped it dropped below freezing, and then now it's in the we're in the teens, or I guess 20s right now. We were in the teens and single digits over night this week. So it's really too harsh for grapes typically. This is Adelmina. This had really good sun exposure on the cane here, so this looks really, really good. Probably 4 or 5 buds off that thing next year. That is pretty well up here. Anyway, the rapid drop in temperature from 50 or 60 degrees to 10 degrees over the course of 10 days has shown to be too much for these vines up here. Here's another Adelmina, another one. It's got a couple of nodes down here that look really good. Again, sun exposure on these as well as the others is very important. Late in the season, just got a couple of nodes on here. These weren't exposed as well as the first one of the Adelminas I showed you. Our surprise this year was this one though, Valiant. It has never hardened off in the past. This year it has got, 6 or 8 inches, probably more out here. And the difference was the soil was saturated in this area right here, saturated to the point where I couldn't even walk on the ground for about 4 weeks. And I was out here looking at it, and we were supposed to get go drop down towards freezing in mid-September, and it didn't even drop to freezing, and that bush just took off and it started hardening off. Like in a couple of days it was all brown. Shocked me because it's never done that before. So I think part of it is that if I actually starve them of water in the fall, it doesn't work. That's something that's been that's touted in the lower 48. Oh, you got to keep them dry, let them dry out, because that helps them harden off, and that is not necessarily the case up here. Not sure why, but anyway. So this is a Petite Pearl. This is a Tom Plocker variety, a private breeder from Minnesota. And I've got another one of his that actually did a whole lot better. This one I don't think really much of this wood's going to survive. Maybe the first bud or two on here. It just didn't turn early enough in the season. Lots of other miscellaneous ones out here that aren't worth mentioning. See anything else? Marquette. Yeah, Marquette's so funny. This part actually down here doesn't look that brown, but last year that's exactly how brown it was, and it ended up surviving the winter. So I don't know, we might get 2 buds, 3 buds off of that one this year, but that's a 2-year-old vine. You can see how short it is. It's only about 24 inches tall. They're really big. Yeah, that one's not even worth looking at. This M56 or ES56. Sorry, it's a Elmer Swenson variety. And it doesn't turn at all. This is the other one of Tom Plocker's varieties that I got this year, and this is really looking good. I mean, probably out to my fingers here, and you can't get an idea of it because it's at an angle, but that's probably 8-10 inches of good wood, possibly. That all hardened off with sun exposure, pulling leaves, as I usually do, starting in late July, early August. Getting sun on the cane, and my goodness gracious, that looks really, really good. The other ones, let's see, we got a couple of new ones in here this year. This is another one. This is another of that one. This is Crimson Pearl, which is the one I just showed you. These are Crimson Pearl, and this one has some pretty good wood down low as well. So let's go down to Beta. For those of you in Alaska that are trying to grow grapes, this is why you don't grow Beta. Okay, there's 2 nodes here. It's all of 3 inches long that might have hardened off for the winter. It's hardy, sure, but not much hardens off, so you don't get any growth off of it. It's just not. You've got to have something that looks like this, okay? This is what you got to look for. This, and this is right here. All along here, the crown is right there, so all of this is one cane, and all of this is the other cane that I grew this year. I let it grow 2 canes, and then it's got a number of laterals that came off here, which will probably end up being cut off next year, but there's a couple of laterals coming off there. Total growth on that thing was about 200 inches. As opposed to 24 for most of the other things. This is from a private breeder in Canada. The wood looks really good out to somewhere in here. This is probably not very good. Oh, if I point it at my hand, this is probably not very good right here. It looks kind of splotchy, and normally what survives for me is what's really solid maroon, kind of a brick, almost a reddish brown color. And so that's probably about 3 feet on either side. We're going to cut the ends off next year, depending on how much dies for whatever reason this winter. And then that thing should fill, if I can get back here a little ways, you'll see right here, this is the stakes that it grew up last year. One shoot grew up that far. Now I've got 2 shoots that are each that long. As long as last year's one king it was, these each grew that same length. So next year I should have, a shoot coming out along here, shoots, 3 or 4 or 5 of them probably coming out and growing all the way up to, if I can find it, my makeshift trellis out of twine. This right here is about 3.5 feet, 4 feet high off the ground. I'm expecting this thing to fill in this entire area here and actually look like a grapevine. Wouldn't that be nice? As opposed to my little stumpy things that grow about 2 feet tall every year and then die. This is a variety that I brought in, got from Geneva, and it turns out it doesn't like it here evidently, because this is M127, so it's ES, Elmer Swenson's M-1-27, and it looked pretty good this year, but it never turned brown. There is absolutely no wood on that shoot at all this year, and that's not the only one of those I have. I have one right here, which I'm not sure it is. It is M127 because it didn't grow the same. It doesn't look the same, but there's a little bit of wood maybe down there. This is one, grows back to the base. And then down here is another one, grows back to the base. So this variety is a no-go up here, it looks like. And unfortunately, that's one of those really early ones that they grow in Norway that they have a lot of success with. Not so successful up here. Here's one that's probably going to lead to more success. This is Fusion 675, and I'll just refer to it as 675. And it's not much growth, but I got it as a cutting this year, and that's pretty good growth considering that it's from a cutting that I rooted. They don't often do much up here. Although another cutting I did, let's see if I can find it here, right here. This one got thrown outside with just weeks before the freeze. I'm debating on whether that actually hardened off enough. It doesn't look dark enough to make it through the winter, but we'll see. It is a Russian grape by a Latvian breeder. And the only thing about this one is that it buds out very late in the spring and flowers very late, which means that as opposed to everything else up here that buds out early, has a longer season to grow the grapes, ripen the grapes. This one will have a shorter season to ripen the grapes in, but it's still supposed to be able to ripen grapes extremely fast. So we have hope, I think, for that one. This is a typical, this is a typical Minnesota variety. This is Bluebell, and you'll notice it doesn't have much on it. There is some wood, but not much. Nothing like Arthur, which is the one I showed you, that's going to show it's going to become a full-size grapevine next year. So other than that, there's really not much. Oh, there is a couple more. This right here is Maturnitz, another Russian grape. Kind of puny looking. Again, it didn't. It grew from a cutting that I rooted this year, so not a whole lot. But I think it'll come out next year and do much better. In the past, the only vine that I've had that shut down in the middle of the fall, before the first hard freeze that kills them back if they're not hardened off, is this one right here. You know about this one. This is Amber 1, my pure amaranthus vine, and yes, it's completely dormant and it looks very, very good all the way up to, about 25 inches off the ground. So most of this wood will probably survive the winter. It's very thin though. This vine just doesn't get very thick canes. This one shuts down, 23rd, 25th of September. It's completely dormant. Again, this year, same thing. Well, I come out here the same day that this one was leafless. Both Maturnitz and Fusion 675 were also leafless. So I've got 3 varieties now that are completely leafless before the first freeze. This is Zilga, a Latvian grape, I believe. and it has some really good wood on it too. It's one that I've had for a while, and you can see it in previous videos. Looks like it hardened off to about out here. You can see where it's real dark brown here, and then it lightens up here. This probably didn't survive the freeze, but it's had troubles, and for one reason or another, whether it doesn't like the freezing temperatures or near freezing temperatures that we might see sometimes in July, it doesn't like that. But it does harden off for the winter, and it is grown in cool climate areas, and so it could be a value up here. I think it's going to be a little bit too late ripening for us, but it does harden off, and it is pretty hardy. It's supposed to be hardy to about 40 below. Again, only where the wood is brown. If the wood isn't dark brown like this, it's not hardy to 40 below. So here's C16. Here's another one that I've been following for a couple of years, and I've had on my videos. This one, a couple of years ago, notice that it's all leafless this year. Again, I think that had a lot to do with the amount of water that was on it. I put a lot of water on these this year. Normally, it would still have leaves on it, and it's not supposed to. And so, obviously, this year it did much better. However, and of course, there's some brown wood on here. I think probably out to about here, maybe a little bit farther. But a couple of years ago, we had the same situation where we had a really warm temperature in the early October, like 60, 63 degrees, which for us is very warm in October. And then within 10 days, it dropped to 8 degrees. And this entire thing died all the way back to the ground. Even though it had decent wood out here, it had died all the way back to the ground because it can't handle those rapid changes in temperature. So this year, we'll see how that one does. Hopefully it'll do better. But anyway, it did produce a fair amount of growth this year. Again, it's one of those, it's just going to need a lot more water than I'm giving it. Let's see, I don't think so. So we do have 2 Balticas, and I covered them with lids to try and keep them as, oh, those lids are frozen on the ground now. They came back this year really late, but they did come back, so they're still alive, and I'm going to try and get some more Baltica cuttings. That's the earliest ripening grape there is, pretty much, is Baltica, followed by the Season 675. Maturnitz is somewhat early. It's earlier than most of the ones from, you know, from Minnesota that I have. But I think, you know, I've got a couple that are likely to come close to ripening in a good warm year here. This one, the Arthur, the big long one here, that's going to show us a nice looking vine next year. That one supposedly doesn't ripen, even for the breeder, the guy who bred it. It still doesn't ripen for him. So I doubt that we're gonna get anything out of that one. But it's showy, and you know, it does grow. It does harden off. It does survive the winter. It's just you know, production side will be non-existent. So anyway, we're gonna run down here real quick to the rush job I did this year planting our flowers that we didn't get planted last year. I did that a couple of weeks ago, and then of course we still didn't get everything planted, so there's a bunch of pots out here on the ground, as we end up doing every year pretty much. But we've got our I can't think of what they're called, hydrangeas, and then other flowers mixed in. And someplace in here, which I don't think you can even see. No, you can't see them. I planted, oh yeah, there they are. We're going to see how this works out. This is a poor little snapdragon. You know, I follow people on Facebook and stuff like that are flower farmers, things like that. And I try and dabble in that kind of stuff. And I was encouraged this year to try what they call cool flowers, cool season hardy annuals. And the catch is, if the annual is not hardy in your zone, it will simply die over the winter. Snapdragons are supposedly hardy down to zone 4, and we usually get a fair amount of snow cover before it gets to the zone 4 temperatures of 20 to 30 below. And so I thought, well, I'll just try it, and so we're going to see if it'll actually survive the winter and come back next year and give us some flowers. Okay, it doesn't hurt to try, right? So I planted them really late. I seeded them in August inside, and they should have been seeded in like early July, I found out this year, because our Septembers are so cold that they don't grow. So you have to actually seed them and put them in the ground about 3 weeks earlier than you would elsewhere in the United States. In the lower 48, you would, you supposedly you can grow things up to your freeze date or frost date. But here, it's just too cold to grow in September for the most part. And so next year I'll know that I'll start them earlier, and we'll see how it works out. There's not a whole lot else to see. You just see a lot of grass out there. The grass, wherever I put the peony in, there's a ton of grass as well around it. Wherever there's no peony, there's no grass. And so I guess that's just what happens. Over here is our fruit, our fruit yard, our wine yard, starting to take shape. And I have a picture of this on Facebook. But we have, let's see, 21 Aurora honeyberries. We have 20 or 22 Borealis honeyberries. A mixture of honeyberries over here. Our first male, let's see if I can find it here. First male seaberry there. First female seaberry here. This is the one that actually flowered and fruited for us this year. Love that fruit, man. That's great stuff. This is our unknown honeyberry that we still don't know where it came from. It appeared in a pot 2 years ago, and it's an interesting one. We'll have to test it out and see. But what I realized was that Aurora and Borealis are most likely too late to ripen here. So I get to pull this whole row out next year and move it over and put it in this place right here, Indigo Gem, which does ripen for us. Every other one of these Borealis has to be pulled out and an Indigo Gem put in there. And then over here, it's going to be a solid row of Indigo Gem. And then we're going to do an alternating row of probably Aurora, Indigo Gem, Aurora, Indigo Gem, Aurora, Indigo Gem. Because Aurora and Borealis will pollinate Indigo Gem and vice versa. But Indigo Gem will not self-pollinate. So I have to space them out so I can alternate the row here. I can put a solid row of Indigo Gem in here. And so we'll end up getting out of it, probably 3/4 of the crop or more being Indigo Gem. And I'm going to expand into here over the next couple of years, but it's rather expensive to buy honeyberry bushes, so it'll probably go pretty slow. Other than that, what's up on the terraces, a mess. We have, if I can find it here, a mess of weeds and currants and gooseberries, which, oh my gosh, phenomenal crops on the gooseberries this year. Right up to the point where the gray jays got just about everything. Went out there and picked everything clean in a couple of days, including my aronia, which I was kind of upset about. But, they're here and want some of their share, right? Other than that, let's go over here real quick, and then before the battery freezes on this iPad, we'll go in. But here is some experimental. These are kiwi, and this one's. This right here is not looking good at all. It's probably dead all the way to the ground. This is our Judah. So this is hardy kiwi. It's not Arctic kiwi. This one, that's a male there. That's a male. This is a female. I believe that's Tatiana, named by a company in the United States. This one usually survives pretty well. Again, you have to have a male to pollinate it. So if the male doesn't survive, then you're out of luck. This is Natasha here. This one generally doesn't survive as well as Tatiana, but it grew a lot better this year. This is all new growth this year. And then we go down here and we have my female hardy or Arctic kiwi here. This one looks like it froze back too. So they, it's just what you get. And then we've got a male over here for the Arctic kiwi. It's looking pretty dark wood there. But, oh, no, these are, I put these down with a piece of wood, hoping that this right here, which is good, still looking, won't be eaten by voles. But because my idea is you have to grow the males right next to the females, and so why not trellis the males along the ground or near the ground, and then trellis the females up higher. Just like grapes, they grow a lot. You grow them just like grapes. You put them on a trellis and prune them back just like a grapevine, and then they produce kiwi, but not the ones that you see in the stores, not the big ones, the fuzzy ones. They produce the small berries, slightly larger than a grape, which we can sometimes find in the stores here in late September. I didn't see any this year though. You just pop them in your mouth and you can eat the whole thing, skin and all. But anyway, that's the kiwi field, and hopefully we'll be enlarging that with the kiwis that I showed you earlier in the video. There's probably about, 20 of them up there that I've just put in the ground about 4 years ago, and they just kind of taken off. It's gonna be fun to dig them out though. I have roots at the bottom of the pot, and what a mess. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We're gonna skip the blackberries for now. I didn't cover them last winter, and they froze back to the crowns, and so they sprout out this year. Wild Treasure's got some good growth on it, but now, and I protected it this winter, but I didn't have any growth on it. I didn't have any berries on it this year. I had a couple, but I didn't get to them before the wasps did. And then as far as the exhibition garden, I have pictures on Facebook throughout the summer of what was blooming out there. Our clematis, the president, bloomed again this year, but I think all the rest of them, none of the rest of them made it. I don't think Jack Manny made it to flower. It didn't open the flower. So everybody said it was a cooler than normal summer, which my thermometer didn't say that, but the plants seemed to say that it was cooler than they were expecting. So other than that, I'm just waiting for, well, it's nice now, the road's frozen, it's no longer a swampy mess, but waiting for the snow to fill in the holes in the road, make it smoother, fill in the dump truck up there so that next fall we can, or next spring we can melt snow, and work on drilling a well, because there's absolutely no way I can keep up with the water demand out here. I read not too long ago in a book that grapes survive well in a climate that gets 24 inches of rain a year. Our total precipitation up here is somewhere between 10 and 12 inches on average, and almost half of that falls in the winter as snow, which then melts in the spring on frozen ground and runs off. And so we essentially get about 6 inches of rain soaking into the ground here a year. So you look at my grapevines and you go, oh, that's why they're not very big. And I have an idea that's at least part of it. The other part is the cold soils. But anyway, we're going to sign off here and leave you with just a view of our cloudy skies, and way back there in the background, the Alaska Range, with Denali, which would be out over about here, but you can't see it because it's in the clouds. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the fall update, and we'll be looking forward to spring. Bye.